Michael Jordan or LeBron James? LeBron James or Michael Jordan? Air Jordan or King James? The Black Jesus or the Chosen One? MJ or Bron? This single question has managed to become the most polarizing discussion in all of sports. It's like Democrats and Republicans for basketball. The question that the NBA media just won't stop asking, and I'm aware that I'm part of this problem making this video. And I'm as sick of this question as you guys probably are. I honestly like to stay away from this debate as much as possible because it's so damn repetitive. I honestly prefer to talk about other areas of the game of basketball that don't get enough light shined on them. But my goal with this video, as you saw by the title, is to create the most in-depth analysis of this ongoing debate, to unpack all of the small nuances in this discussion, and to come up with the most objective answer to this question, making as many data-driven decisions as possible. Now, in a perfect world, a video like this would prove who truly was the GOAT of the NBA, and people would stop having this discussion every other week. But unfortunately, this will never happen. So enough of me yapping, let's dive into this discussion.
Michael, get it pulls with a fresh shot clock. MJ. Michael shakes the finger.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
The first layer of the onion we're going to peel off today of the GOAT debate is stats, and I'm sure most of you guys are briefly aware of how this will look, but I'm still going to show you anyways. LeBron James at face value would seem like the obvious player to pick for better stats. He has more career points, rebounds, assists, and blocks than MJ. Jordan only beats him in steals of the 5 main stat categories, but LeBron has been playing basketball for a really long time. LeBron has been in the NBA for 21 seasons, while MJ only played 15 years. All this really shows is that LeBron has been great in multiple areas of the game for a super long time. Not to diminish the longevity that LeBron has shown us, but we kind of expect to see that with 6 more years in the league. If we look at averages, I think this tells us a better story. When looking at the averages of the 5 basic stats, Michael Jordan takes scoring, almost averaging 3 more points than LeBron a game on average. LeBron easily takes rebounding and assists over Jordan. Jordan once again dominates the steals, and they both tie in blocks per game. But the averages still don't show the whole story either. All this shows is that MJ on offense chose to score the ball a lot. MJ has the highest points per game of any player ever, but this also shows that LeBron is a more well-rounded player on offense. Not only can he get a bucket whenever he pleases, but LeBron chooses to get his teammates involved more and participate on the boards more than MJ did. It also helps that LeBron has about 3 inches and 50 more pounds on MJ, which makes rebounding a lot easier. But let's add efficiency to the mix, shall we? Both of these players have very impressive shooting splits. Both players shoot around 50% from the field, but LeBron slightly edges him out. LeBron's size helps a lot with shooting more efficiently, making tougher shots a lot easier. Both players have a very similar 3-point percentage. This category isn't really fair to MJ though. The man wasn't a primary 3-point shooter, and he played in an era where the 3-point shot was still developing into what we see it as today. It wasn't as prevalent 30 years ago. LeBron isn't the primary 3-point shooter either, but playing in a generation that values the deep ball so much is a very important factor to why he wins this category. Now, these basic stats are a good starting place, but this debate goes so much deeper. This is just the tip of the iceberg. After covering the basic statistics of the game that we're all familiar with, we're going to look at some deeper stats. We're going to look at the advanced stats of LeBron and MJ. The stats that show the true production, impact, and effectiveness on the court. The first advanced stat we're going to look at is win shares. A win share shows how much of a team win an individual is responsible for. It's such a great stat because it shows on-court contributions the best. We're going to look at not only just win shares, but win shares per 48, offensive win shares, and defensive win shares. And LeBron James beats MJ in total win shares by more than 40 points. LeBron also has more offensive and defensive win shares than MJ. But when we look at win shares per 48, Michael Jordan beats LeBron. This is a very common theme we're going to see throughout this video. The stats that favor per minute production or peak performance will mostly fall to Jordan, but the stats that fall under total accumulation or sustained greatness over a long period of time will most likely fall to LeBron. Some other advanced stats we can look at are true shooting percentage, box plus minus, value over replacement, and PER. True shooting percentage is a stat that captures a player's combined efficiency from 2, 3, and the free throw line. And LeBron slightly wins, shooting 58.8%. Box plus minus is a stat that's based on box score for evaluating players' quality and contributions to a team from play-by-play regression. And this stat isn't cumulative, it's an average. So MJ slightly beats out LeBron here, 9.2 to 8.8. MJ also wins in both offensive and defensive box plus minus. Value over replacement, which is really similar to box plus minus, but the score is compared to the average player in the NBA and is cumulative. LeBron takes this category by a healthy 30-point margin. And the last advanced stat we're going to look at, PER, which is basically a measurement of per minute efficiency on the court in every aspect. Michael Jordan barely wins 27.9 to 27.2. So for the most part, we've proven that MJ wins the season average stats and LeBron wins the counting stats, but we're still not even close to finished yet. Accolades and awards won in the NBA are one of the best ways to tell how successful of a career a player had. Winning some of the most prestigious awards in the league is a very tall task, and I think it's pretty obvious to say that both of these players have decked out their basketball resumes. But whose is really better? Well, let's look at this. Right here we have a chart that shows all of the significant awards each player won during their career. Both players stuffed the graph with all their trophies. In terms of MJ's awards, one of the biggest things that pops up is the absolute insane, pretty much untouchable peak this man had from about 1987 to 1998. Ignoring the year and a half that he was out of the league, in this 9-year span, Jordan notched up 6 rings, 6 finals MVPs, 5 MVPs, a defensive player of the year, and was an all-star on the first team All-NBA, on the first team All-Defense, and led the league in scoring every single year of this stretch. That's unfathomable. We've honestly never seen a player even come close to matching MJ's peak in terms of accolades. Let's look at LeBron's resume though. I think the easiest thing that stands out about LeBron's resume is just the sheer longevity he's shown. LeBron at the time of this recording has appeared in 19 straight All-Star games. The only other player in NBA history to accomplish that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from 1970 to 1989. And LeBron's probably going to extend this record to 2 decades this season. LeBron also has 18 straight All-NBA team selections, which no one really even comes close to this streak. So LeBron's career accolades are more spread out through his career, while MJ's were packed into about a decade peak. But let's really compare them against each other. Michael Jordan beats LeBron in championships 6-4, finals MVP 6-4 also, and MVPs 5-4. Jordan also has 1 defensive player of the year to LeBron's 0. They both won a rookie of the year trophy. LeBron outdoes Jordan in all-star appearances 19-15 and all NBA selections 19-11. But Jordan outdoes James in defensive selections 9-6 and scoring titles 10-1. In terms of accolades, I'm going to give this category to MJ. Despite LeBron's All-Star and All-NBA selections that are out of this world impressive, I think awards like championships, finals MVPs, and defensive player of the years are more valuable awards to win. I think MJ's peak of dominance outshines LeBron's never-ending reign of dominance. But we're not done talking about peaks yet. I really want to dive deeper into this prime conversation. About a year ago, at the time of this recording, Jimmy High Roller, who I'm sure you've heard of if you're watching me, uploaded a video titled "Using Numbers to Find the Greatest Individual Season in NBA History." And in this video, he created a system that quantifies a player's individual season through a calculated scoring system. And I'm going to do my own version of this season score, but with a few of my own tweaks, and only looking at MJ and LeBron. In my version, a season score is found by adding the 5 basic stats: points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, adding PER, win share, value over replacement, and box plus minus, adding 6 points for an all-star appearance, 12, 10, or 8 points for an all-NBA selection depending on which level, 5 or 3 points for an all-defensive team selection, 10 points for a defensive player of the year, 12 points for an MVP, and 15 points for a finals MVP. And as a result of this scoring system, I think it paints a really good picture of the players' prime seasons in the league. Right here, we have a chart that shows all 35 seasons in between the 2 players. And at the very top, we find Michael Jordan's 1998 campaign, where if you remember from the accolades part, he won first team All-Defense, first team All-NBA, an All-Star selection, defensive player of the year, scoring title, and MVP. And on top of that, put up 35, 5, 5, and 3 steals a game. Michael Jordan holds 4 of the top 5 individual seasons, 6 of the top 10 individual seasons, and 10 of the top 14 seasons. This is what it looks like on a line chart compared to each other. While LeBron James has remained way more consistent than Jordan over his whole career, MJ just had higher peaks. Player longevity is a trait that simply most players don't have. Only the greatest of great players can truly sustain excellence for an extended period of time. I'm talking anywhere from 15 plus years extended. And this section is overwhelmingly the strongest argument for LeBron being the GOAT. We've seen many NBA players sustain great performance into their later years. As a matter of fact, LeBron, ever since his rookie year, has never averaged less than 25 points a game. Never. Kobe's longest streak of averaging 25 a game or more was 9 seasons. Kareem's was also 9 seasons. Wilt also follows them with 9 seasons. Karl Malone was 11 at most, and MJ was also 11. But when looking at the 5 counting stats combined, this chart shows exactly that. We have players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, and Karl Malone. Players that have had a really long and successful career. But none of these guys come close to what LeBron James is doing. Oh yeah, I forgot to add Michael Jordan into the mix. Yeah, he doesn't even come close either. And it's not just counting stats. When looking at PER, you can see the same story as well. LeBron, ever since he was drafted, has been one of the best players in the league. Besides his rookie year, there's a solid argument for LeBron James being the best player in the league for 20 straight years, including this year. Did you know that LeBron was the youngest player ever to score 1,000 career points, and the youngest to score 2,000, and 3,000, and 4,000, and so forth until 38,000 points? That's insane. LeBron has shown us how dominant he can be from the age of 19 all the way to the age of 39 and counting. LeBron will, almost indefinitely in the next few years, break the all-time record in All-Star appearances, All-NBA selections, games played, seasons played. You name the stat or category that's done by just long-term dominance and sheer longevity, and LeBron is probably at the front of it. The competition that a player has faced throughout his career has a huge impact on whether they'll be successful or not. It can mean the difference from ending a playoff run short or going all the way. And throughout both Jordan and LeBron's career, they've both faced some great teams during the postseason. But who faced harder competition? At face value, you could just look at who played against more All-Stars. That would be LeBron James, who played against 93 All-Stars in his whole career, compared to Michael Jordan, who only played against 60. But LeBron has also played 53 playoff series compared to MJ's 37. If we take the average amount of All-Stars per playoff series, LeBron would come out on top, playing against an average of 1.75 All-Stars a series compared to Jordan's 1.62. Right here, this is a table that shows us the All-Stars that LeBron and Jordan played against in each different playoff round. As you'd expect, LeBron dominates this list in terms of total All-Stars played against, only coming up short in the first round. It makes sense. LeBron never had to play against the Larry Bird Celtics, the Sidney Moncrief Bucks, the first round of the playoffs. But in terms of average All-Stars played against, it gets a little different. Michael Jordan still wins the first round, but also takes the conference finals competition. But LeBron still comes away with the second round, conference average, NBA finals, and average competition. Looking at the All-Stars they played against is alright, but I think there's an even better way to solve this. At the end of the regular season every year, each team in the NBA is assigned a scorer that values both their margin of victory and their strength of schedule combined. This is called their SRS score, and we can use this objective metric to come to a more concrete answer of finding competition. So what I did was found the SRS scores of every team that both LeBron and MJ played against in the playoffs, and the results might surprise you. Let's break this down round by round how we did before. In terms of first round competition, Michael Jordan has a pretty sizable lead over LBJ here, 2.57 to 0.5. In the second round, MJ also wins, 3.95 to 3.15. And once again, MJ also wins in the conference finals, 5.39 to 3.8. And the conference average score, which factors in the 3 rounds we just talked about. You can probably guess who takes this one home. It's Michael Jordan. Truth be told is that the teams like the Larry Bird Celtics, Bad Boy Pistons, Patrick Ewing Knicks, and Reggie Miller Pacers were tougher matchups than who LeBron played, like the Big 3 Celtics, the Paul George Pacers, Derrick Rose Bulls, and DeMar DeRozan Raptors. But looking at NBA Finals competition is where things get different. LeBron wins this category 7.4 to 6.84. LeBron was constantly running into some of the greatest teams ever assembled in the finals. The Spurs with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Kawhi multiple times, and the Splash Brother Warriors 4 times in a row. Historically elite teams. They were just more challenging matchups than, let's say, the Utah Jazz with Stockton and Malone, the Gary Payton Supersonics, and the Magic Johnson-led Lakers. But how about, instead of looking at this through series averages, how about we look at this through NBA Finals runs? Who had the most challenging run start to finish? Right here, this chart shows the combined SRS scores of every finals run from both LeBron and MJ compared. LeBron's 2020 finals run by far being the easiest, followed by LeBron in 2013 and then MJ in 1991. You have multiple of LeBron's Heat finals runs down at the bottom of this list, along with the 96 and 98 Bulls. Besides the Spurs in the finals in 2007, the Eastern Conference was a cakewalk for LeBron pretty much. It's clear that some of the most challenging finals runs that LeBron ever had were in the Splash Brother Warrior era, but the finals run that takes the crown here is the 1997 Bulls, where they played against the Washington Bullets with Chris Webber and Rod Strickland, then beat the Hawks with Steve Smith and Mookie Blaylock, then beat the Miami Heat with Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning, and finally beat the Stockton and Malone Jazz in the finals. So I think the moral of the story here is that MJ easily played against tougher conference competition, but weaker finals competition, which led to less appearances, but winning every single time he made the finals. But LeBron faced way easier competition in his own conference, but tougher in the finals, which led to more appearances, but a lower win rate. But I would give the slight edge to Jordan in this category. Another aspect to weigh in upon when judging the success that each of these legends have found is how much help they've had during their whole career. MJ and Bron didn't each win championships by themselves. It took a whole team effort and organization to do so. And both of these players have played with extraordinary talent throughout their career. In terms of all-star teammates in their career, LeBron has played with Mo Williams in 2009, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh 4 straight seasons, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love twice, and Anthony Davis twice, adding up to a total of 15 all-star teammates. Michael Jordan, on the other hand, has played with a lot less all-star teammates, only playing with Scottie Pippen, who was an all-star 6 times with the Bulls while Mike was on the team. But it's kind of unfair to LeBron because, as we know, he's played 6 more seasons in the NBA. LeBron on average has played with 0.75 All-Stars a season, while MJ has only played with 0.4. But let's take this a step higher and look at all NBA teammates. LeBron James throughout his career has played with Dwayne Wade, who qualified from 2011 to 2013. He had Kyrie in 2015 and Anthony Davis in 2020. Totaling at 5 All-NBA teammates. Surprisingly, Michael Jordan actually beats him out here, having Scottie Pippen for 6 seasons of qualification. Another thing to mention is the coaching that each player had. Jordan, although he dealt with a few bad coaches in his early days, had Phil Jackson behind him through his prime, known as pretty much the greatest coach of all time. And do you know who LeBron had? He had a total of 8 head coaches during his career, and besides Eric Spoelstra with the Heat and Tyronn Lue with the Cavs, 6 of these coaches have been fired while LeBron was there. LeBron hasn't had the luxury of consistent high-level coaching that MJ had. But I think this help debate goes a little deeper than just All-Stars, All-NBA selections, and even coaching. Michael Jordan and LeBron James have both been a part of some of the greatest assembled teams in NBA history, and both have also been the motor of every single one of those teams. Right here, we have a chart that shows the amount of team wins each player's teams have gotten. MJ in red and LeBron in blue. Both have had their ups and downs in terms of their team success, but I think it's clear that MJ has had better teams in the prime of his career. The 90s Bulls were just a thing of beauty, but let's add in another variable to this equation: win shares, the amount of wins each player contributed per season. This chart shows that MJ had slightly more win shares than LeBron. He contributed to his team slightly more than him. If you subtract this difference of individual win shares from team wins, you would find the amount of wins each team had without their star player. MJ, during the beginning of his career, was absolutely bearing the load of this dogshit team, if we're going to be real. It wasn't until later in his career where he got a talented team around him and was able to take his foot off the gas a little bit. He allowed his team to contribute more. LeBron, on the other hand, throughout a good portion of his career, has had to play hero ball almost every year to keep his team alive, besides 2012 right here, where the Heat had 66 wins. He's had to shoulder the load. Without him, many of these Cavs, Heat, and Lakers teams would have been average at best. But I think this really proves the floor raiser versus ceiling raiser debate. LeBron has the unique ability that we've pretty much seen from no one else in NBA history, of being able to come into a franchise and instantly make them a championship contender. Even favorites right away. He did it in Cleveland at first, then he did it in Miami, then back in Cleveland again, and finally in LA. LeBron here would classify as a floor raiser. MJ, on the other hand, would be classified as a ceiling raiser. When MJ was drafted into the league, throughout almost all of the 80s, the Jordan Bulls were first-round exits or conference semifinals at the best. MJ was never able to drag a team of nobodies to the finals like Bron could. But what really brings out MJ's greatness was when he had a well-constructed team around him that was willing to buy into the system. And the rest is history. MJ's ability to turn an already solid squad into a championship favorite is what makes him so special. Now remember this chart, the team wins versus win shares thing? If we divided the win shares by team wins, we would get what I like to call individual contributions of each player. And it looks a little something like this. As you can see, Michael Jordan was absolutely putting the Bulls on his back in the 80s, contributing more than 40% to the team wins. Again, it wasn't until he actually got some help around him where he took a step back, but he was still giving his team a ton. For context, the average NBA player would contribute about 7% with around 41 team wins and 2.5 win shares, and the average star player in the league would contribute about 20% with around 50 wins and 10 win shares. LeBron has been consistently shouldering the load of his teams, but I think it's safe to say that MJ would win this graph. To really conclude this help debate, LeBron has had way more firepower throughout his career, playing with some out-of-this-world talent like Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and AD. But sometimes firepower isn't always the answer. Sometimes all that firepower isn't even necessary. Sometimes all you need is a well-organized, well-coordinated team that plays within their roles and buys into a winning system of basketball. Remember when I said this video was going to be as objective as possible? And to come up with the most objective answer to this question, well, I may be going against my words in this section, because right now, we're going to look at the one part of this video that really isn't objectively true, but you're just going to have to take my word for it. The eye test is one of the most tried and true methods of deciding the GOAT of basketball. What better way than to watch both of them play and decide who's better? Pretty simple. Well, I might piss off some LeBron fans here, but I think that Michael Jordan passes the eye test better than LeBron. Despite LeBron James literally being one of, if not the greatest athlete to ever suit up in basketball shoes, despite LeBron still doing shit like this in year 21, despite LeBron creating countless jaw-dropping highlights throughout his career, making people question if he was built in a basketball lab, I think that Jordan takes the eye test category. Do you ever just wonder why fans over the age of 50 never stop talking about how great Michael Jordan was? The people that actually watched Michael Jordan play? I don't mean to sound like a total dick rider here, but Michael Jordan had a flair, an electrifying aspect, an inhuman attribute to himself that no other player in NBA history has had. Michael Jordan was literally doing things on the basketball court that people just couldn't believe. Every single game. He was just ahead of his time skill-wise. There was just something special about Jordan's game that words can't quite capture. I know I'm probably the last person to be saying this because I'm 19 years old and started watching the NBA in 2015, but just ask your favorite old head about Michael Jordan, and you'll be there for a while. The final category we need to talk about is LeBron and Jordan's legacies compared to each other. You hear the word legacy thrown out there very loosely nowadays, but I would define legacy in basketball terms as the achievements and impacts a player has made throughout their career and how they'll be remembered because of them. When looking at both players' legacies, I think that LeBron really got the short end of the deal throughout most of his career. LeBron was drafted into a piss-poor organization in the Cleveland Cavaliers that made one conference finals appearance in the previous 25 years before LeBron was there. During LeBron's first stint with the Cavs, he was doing more than his fair share to keep the Cavs afloat, but the team just couldn't put talent around him to save his life. So this forced James to make a pretty legacy-altering move. Go sign with the Miami Heat and become known as the super team starter. There was really no good option here for LeBron. After that, he won 2 championships with the Heat before going right back to the place that drafted him. And just when you thought LeBron James would finally catch a break, boom, the greatest super team of all time formed with 2 top 15 players of all time and 4 total All-Stars. So this prevented LeBron from getting multiple championships in Cleveland to just 1. The man has been forced to play GM himself and make legacy-altering decisions just to give himself a fighting chance at winning championships. But Michael Jordan, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. MJ has a basketball legacy that belongs in a Hollywood film. Jordan was also drafted into a piss-poor franchise that had saw one playoff appearance in the previous 7 years before MJ. And instantly, Jordan was a game changer for Chicago. But clearly, just him wasn't enough, because during the 80s, MJ got smacked by the dominant teams in the East, like the Moncrief Bucks, Larry Bird Celtics, and Bad Boy Pistons. But unlike LeBron, MJ did catch a break, because as soon as the dominant teams in the East started to fade away, the Jordan-led Bulls were rising with the help of other talents put around him, like Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and BJ Armstrong. The Bulls peaked at the right time, and as a result of this, they won 6 championships in 6 appearances in an 8-year span, completely changing the legacy and notion of Michael Jordan as the leader of a top 2 dynasty of all time. And as soon as he saw the Bulls were going south, he went out on top, the most illustrious way to do it. His legacy was almost flawless. So while MJ was naturally able to find success in his original team that drafted him, which strongly helps his basketball reputation, LeBron had to make many controversial and negatively perceived decisions to find his success. So, after watching this video for about 20 minutes or however long it is, I think it's about time to reveal my final answer. And based off the several components of this video, you can probably guess my answer, but my real answer might shock you. You see, despite me putting in hours and days of my time to come to an objective conclusion, there isn't one. There isn't a GOAT calculation that's universally followed by everyone. The answer to this question really depends on what you value in a player. If you value purely skill on the basketball court, well, some of your best GOAT contenders would be something like Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, or Kobe Bryant. If you value purely winning championships, well, Bill Russell would be your GOAT. If you value purely awards, achievements, and accolades, well, I think there would be a solid argument for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to be your number 2 guy behind MJ. But me personally, I would argue that Michael Jordan is the GOAT of basketball. Based off Michael Jordan's peak production, his superior set of accolades and awards, the fact that he played with less firepower and offense, played against fierce competition, and still came up on top 6 years of his career, I would say that he's my GOAT. But I don't think it's an end-all be-all Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Unlike a lot of Jordan fans, I think there still is a reasonable argument for LeBron being the GOAT. LeBron has shown us longevity in basketball that was simply inconceivable. He's managed to be a legit superstar in the league for almost 2 decades at this point, half of his life. He's managed to still find impressive success despite facing very unfortunate circumstances. And also, unlike Jordan fans, I don't think that LeBron's door is shut just yet. Although it's impossible for LeBron to match prime MJ's production, it'll be pretty much impossible for him to match his awards, and I highly doubt he'll match his team's success. I still think that there is a route that LeBron can take. If LB James can somehow match his current production of play and stretch his longevity to a length so unthinkable, so unprecedented, I think there will be a point where we have no option but to call LeBron James the GOAT of basketball. But for now, I'm resting on the case that Michael Jordan's the GOAT of basketball.